Holbrook Travel is pleased to bring you this webinar today. The Natural World Pushing Boundaries is the third episode of To the Ends of the Earth, award-winning nature photographer Todd Gustafson's three-part series of books and PBS documentaries. This third episode takes the viewer from the roof of the world, the Himalayas, to the driest of deserts, the Great Namib, and to the wettest rainforests of Costa Rica and Madagascar. While carrying the longest telephotos, the widest fisheyes, and the closest focusing macro lenses to capture wildlife, Todd reveals the beauty and behaviors of the dynamic species that have pushed boundaries for millennia to become sloths, elephants, and chameleons. During today's presentation, Todd will take us behind the scenes of the series and share how the third episode has taken a different track due to the coronavirus, perhaps helping conservation even more. We'll see clips from the series and learn how profits from the project support Jane Goodall's many conservation programs. We'll have time at the end for questions, so please submit those at any point using that Q&A function during the presentation. Todd Gustafson has been photographing nature, wildlife, and natural history around the world for the last 2 decades. His images have been used in displays and publications by the likes of the Lincoln Park Zoo, Smithsonian, Nikon, and the Discovery Channel. His photographs hang in the San Diego Museum of Natural History as part of their Birds of the World exhibit. And he's been the on-screen expert for 2 National Geographic Great Migration television specials. These are just a few of his many credits. He's also the founder of Gustafson Photo Safari, and he's led photographic safaris all across the globe. East Africa is his specialty, and he travels there at least once a year to observe and photograph the birthing and river crossing season there. His vast knowledge of the habitat and behavior of wildlife, as well as his social interaction with local people, has contributed greatly to his success. We're also joined today by Holbrook Travel's Vice President of Product Development, Pelin Karasha. Pelin has been with Holbrook Travel since 1998, and in that time, she's worked with Todd to help coordinate dozens of photo expeditions around the world. She herself is an avid photographer, and she has accompanied Todd on some of his trips. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Pelin. Pelin, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And hi, Todd. Thanks again for taking time to share your experience with us. My friendship with Todd started in 2005. It has been now quite a lot of years. And I know many of you might have already heard this story, but we kind of met by chance in Kenya, of all places. Todd was finishing up one of his photo safaris in Kenya at Lake Nakuru, and I was working on some of our programs over there. And while we were taking a break, the hotel's owner actually introduced us, and the rest, as both Todd and I say, are almost history. I looked at some of his images, which he was great to share, and seeing Tanzania, a destination that I really love, through Todd's eye and vision, seeing the emotion in the species was amazing. So we kind of talked about Costa Rica, and from there on, new horizons, new windows opened to both of us. We have certainly collaborated on so many different projects and explored the world together, and we are hoping to do so in the upcoming years when this whole pandemic is over. As you know, my whole dream is just like polar bears, and Todd is going to make that dream come true when we finally have that trip done, hopefully next year in fall season as well. So thanks again for your friendship, for your vision, and how you have been teaching us to look at the world and this beauty of nature. And without further ado, the microphone is yours, Todd. Take us away.
Thanks, Pelin. Hi, everybody. And by the way, no pressure for the polar bears, right? Thanks, Pelin. Yeah, I have been blessed to know Pelin, and through Pelin, Holbrook and Andrea Holbrook, and everybody in this family has been so supportive and so kind for the development of Gustafson's Photo Safari, and ultimately to the ends of the earth, which that kind of stemmed out of my wife's looking at some of the pretty pictures that we had hanging on the wall. And she said, what are we going to do with these? Because they're pretty here, but other people need to see them. And so I thought maybe we can just sort of make a portfolio and maybe we can sell that and use the money for conservation purposes. That would be great. And then that turned into the concept of a book. And then that turned into the concept of let's make the most beautiful book that's ever been made. And I think we may have done that with the End of the Earth 3-volume series. They're huge, they're beautiful. The money that they raise goes to Jane Goodall's conservation funds, especially Roots and Shoots. And that's an educational program where kids get involved around the world and then end up populating the world and replanting native species that have been deforested. It's an amazing project. That all started really when I grew up in East Africa. My dad was a missionary and a biology and zoology teacher. And I'm going to start to share a screen here and say, let's do some photos from days gone by. So that's me now. Well, a couple of years ago. The mustache is a little whiter now, but still, that's me. And Dad was a builder and an architect as well as a biologist, zoologist. So he was in charge of the building of Magamba Secondary School. And that's me in the background on the right. Magamba was a village in the Usambara Mountains of, 200-300 people. The school became the center for an educational outreach that spanned East Africa up through the Sudan and Kenya and down to Somalia, or down to Mozambique. Lots of kids came from all over for this secondary school experience. My mom took care of Jane and me. My big brother was away at boarding school at the beginning. I think that the suspenders make that shot. We had a little dog named Poika, and my sister apparently had a really cool purse. I didn't remember that, but I see this in the picture here. The boys, here's the guys at the school, and they're lined up because Julius Nyerere, the president of Tanzania, was coming to visit the school that day. Here they are at inspection, and you can see they're wearing shorts, and most of them are wearing short-sleeved shirts. Few of them at this point, you can see, are wearing sweaters. We're at 7,000 feet in the Usambaras, and my mom said, this is not really a good idea to have them dressed like this with a British style of boarding school dress. So she taught them to knit. And you can see these beautiful sweaters that they knit, and they knit caps, and they knit socks. And if you go to the Usambaras today, you can see a grandfather teaching his grandson to knit. It's a tradition there now. So when I got older, I think I was 5 at this point, I joined my big sister and brother at boarding school at Kiamboy. This was the vehicle of Fred Malloy. He was the head of the school. And I just have always loved that shot with my cool Wellingtons and the striped Jeep. Brian, who's been my inspiration my whole life, was one of the big kids. And here you see him as he's spending a 3-month period with the Hadzabe Bushman tribe in Tanzania. They're the northernmost Bushmen. And he did with, I think, Dave Peterson, who is still in Tanzania, they did the first click language dictionary for this tribe. This is one of Dad's students who, when he first came to the school, was a refugee who was being hidden. He was a Sudan prince, and his tribe was being wiped out by the warlords. And so he came back, they hid him in Dad's school, and he became a prefect and a leader of the student body. And Dad sponsored him to come to America. And I believe he went to the University of Iowa and got his master's degree there and became a freedom fighter in the Sudan, and actually brought the Sudan to a peaceful accord before his helicopter was shot down in, I think it was around 2008. And now Sudan's a mess again. Here he is at the graduation. And from 6th grade on, when we moved back to the United States, all I wanted to do was play trumpet. So I became the best trumpet player that I could be, and played in a top 40s band. I've played in jazz bands and orchestras, recorded CDs in Europe and New York and Los Angeles and Chicago. These are some of the guys I play in the horn section with in the Steve Edwards Orchestra. Here's some of the guys from the LA recordings. On the left is Jim Linehan, who is Donna Summer's trumpet player through all her career. And in 1986, Julie said, trumpet's great, but we should take your mom and dad back to Tanzania. And I've never seen it. I'd like to see what you guys, where you grew up. So we went on safari, the four of us, and ended up going back to the school Dad had built. Still a functioning secondary school. Amazing. He's so proud of that. We went camping through Amboseli and through Savo. Here's Mom and Dad about 10 years ago, I think. And here's Julie on safari. She is my life support and the person who's allowed all this to happen. So when the kids got a part of our family, we've got three kids. Anders is on the left, Dana's the middle, and Jenny is on the right. Julie said we should take them on safari, and we should take them with your mom and dad and do a revisit. So we did, and there's me and my dad in the Ngorongoro crater. This is a really, really cool raptor rehab program in Malindi on the coast of Kenya. And my kids are learning a little bit about the African fishing eagle. Another safari, they're all older here. And here they are, another 3 or 4 years older in Lake Naivasha. So they have Africa in their blood as well. These are the Usambara Mountains where I grew up, a place called World's End, just out of Magamba, 7,000 feet straight down to the Pare. And there's a hotel up here called the Lawns Hotel. And in their book, their guest book, great white hunters would be down hunting. And when it would get hot, they'd come up to the mountains to cool off. On that book registrar are Kaiser Wilhelm, Prince of Denmark, Teddy Roosevelt, all kinds of people. There's my family as we are today. Well, Anders may be a little older than that, but still, that's us. The pictures that we've taken on these safaris ended up being a permanent exhibition in the Smithsonian in Natural History Museum in Washington. This is a permanent exhibit at the Lincoln Park Zoo. And the Pelican Company asked if I would design a safari bag for them. This is maybe 7 years ago, and it's a really good bag that they sold out of and then stopped making, disappointingly. I love to get close to nature, and I love to go out and see it in the wild. In Madagascar, that is one of the places you can really get close to it, and you can have lemurs every day like this, different species. I think there's 104 species, and we get maybe 30-ish every trip that we go. Most of the time, I think one of the questions that I got early from this was, what's the best time of year to go to Madagascar? Well, I've gone in February and it's very, very hot. It's green, but it's hot and humid because of the rains. So our favorite time is sort of a March, April time period. Here's us getting close again to the wildlife. Through this whole experience, I've gotten to be good friends with some of the fine, fine nature photographers on the planet. This is George Lepp. Here's Franz Lanting. This is my friend Art Wolf, who always has a good humor about him. And this is Jonathan Scott. Some of you may know the Big Cat Diaries from the television series. Unbelievable stuff that he and his wife, Angela, have done over the years. This is last year in the Himalayas. We turned a corner and there were these three people standing in the road. It's Joe and Mary McDonald and my good friend, Peter Hudson. And that's it for the family stuff. Let's go to something new. I think one of the cool things about the Ends of the Earth is that the concepts are legion if you think about it. If we're having a story, that's about to the ends of the earth. The first one for me, obviously, was East Africa. And I loved East Africa. Doing that series and doing the book and all that was great. But the second one, Birds of East Africa, equally engaging and challenging to do. I'll say that the very first one, I'm going to get out of screen sharing here for a second. The very first one was East Africa, and that one took probably 2 years to produce. I wrote music for it, for the soundtrack, 22 pieces, and we recorded that with a 65-piece orchestra in Nashville. The second one, Birds of East Africa, wrote, edited, filmed and photographed that one. It took probably a year to do that one. Now, the third one, in this past COVID year, I sat around and did nothing because it was so depressing and frightening, actually, to think of going out and doing anything. So there was no filming, there was no photographing, there was no travel. And I got a call from public television. They said, "Are you ready to put the third episode out?" I said, "I really don't have a third episode. I don't know what I would do." And they said, "What do you have in your vault of film and photographs?" So Julie and I were walking around the block with our beagle, and Julie says, "What you have right now is stuff from around the world. And if you did The Natural World third episode, you could take stories from every place that you've been and tie them together with concepts of mating and courtship and universal things like family and humor. All the different emotions that we have are on a global scale with all these different species in the natural world." So around June, I still hadn't started. And I got a call from a couple friends in the band Chicago, actually, who are really interested in our series. And they said, "Have you started yet?" And I said, "Well, not really." And so they hooked me up with a remix of one of their great tunes called Dialogue. And Dialogue, the lyrics go, "Are you," oh man, I'm coming up blank here. "Are you something about the way things are right now?" And the answer in that dialogue is, "No, I never really think of it at all." And it's pretty much, the lyrics say, get off your butt and do stuff. Don't just talk about it, do stuff. So that week I started making this film, The Natural World, episode 3. And instead of 2 years and 1 year to produce it, it took 5 months. I really had it down and things were flowing and it was really going together well. And my friend, Carl Safina, now my friend, wrote the foreword to the book, The Natural World. And so I was very big on him doing the natural world narration. And so I thought, I got to call him sometime and try and get this script read so I can mix it in there. And trying to get through to him was hard. He's the finest, the greatest ecologist/author on the planet right now. And so he has sort of handlers, and getting through them was kind of difficult. When I finally got a hold of him, we're scheduled for a call and we're going to go at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. So I call Carl, I say, "Hello." And he picks up the phone, he says, "Hello." I said, "Oh, this is Todd Gustafson." He says, "Hi." I thought, uh-oh. I'm going to have to step it up here. And so I just launched into talking about what we're doing and how it had taken 5 months to get to here. And I hadn't really gotten off my butt to get it going until I got a call from Chicago. And the words were, "Are you optimistic about the way things are right now?" And Carl jumps in and he says, "No, I never really think of it at all. That's my favorite song." And from that point, we're talking about this, we're talking about that, we're talking about nature, we're talking about overdubbing, we're talking about schedules. And Julie and I flew to his home in Long Island, and in 2 days went to his little cottage in the woods and made the most beautiful recording of his narration. I'm going to share screen and I'm going to show you the short blurb that is The Natural World. So let's see, that would be right here.
For centuries, humankind has struggled mightily to distance our species from the natural world. herewith, by the keen light of Todd Gustafson's eyes, the natural world. Long ago, before the tongue had any word for beauty, we felt our response. Images can evoke our feeling before we can come up with the words. And these images are so evocative because they perceive deeply. I have another name for the natural world. I call it the real world. For essentially all of Earth's history, all the living world's history, and virtually all of human history, there was no natural world. The world was natural. It was not a category. It was simply what was. These images reflect and celebrate the living world, but they imply a kind of heartbreak for a living world so vitally unaware of how imperiled it is. Can we not take a lesson from indigenous people who continue to live not as the Earth's stewards, but as part of a world that is natural? Here we will explore what it means to push boundaries as we travel from the roof of the world, the Himalayas, to the driest deserts on the planet like the Great Namib, and continue pushing boundaries in our exploration to the world's wettest rainforest of Madagascar and Costa Rica, all the while carrying the longest telephoto lenses, allowing us to maintain a photographing distance that helps prevent our presence from disturbing wildlife's natural behavior. You will see how using the widest view fisheye lenses can capture panoramic vistas and create an unparalleled scene, and macro lenses that give the closest, most intimate view of the tiny creatures with whom we share this delicate planet.
Our goal is to capture, through still photographs and film, wildlife's intriguing behaviors and adaptations that tell stories of evolution, adaptation, and change in these animals who have pushed boundaries for millennia to possess unique characteristics that set them apart from all others. I hope that came through smoothly, Palin.
It did. And I mean,
Good.
the music is amazing. I think it really carries the emotion.
Thank you. Thank you. And Carl just is impeccable. Absolutely wonderful in his approach to it. So this film has been running on PBS on multiple stations across the country, and I think it's been now for 5 weeks. So it's in its infancy. But the Birds of East Africa one has been going for 18 months, is gaining traction, and lots of, I think they have like 90% of the market share now in PBS. So that's terrific. The money coming in from people buying DVDs and CDs and soundtracks and books. There's the complete set of books of the natural world in East Africa and the birds book. Those are going very well, and it's much appreciated by, I'm going to say, the habitats and the animals that receive those funds.
Especially at this time when the pandemic is like killing the tourism industry, I think conservation really needs that support from all of us.
Yeah. And I'm going to go jump in here, Palin, because there's another program that we're trying to do is the guides that have helped us and made it possible for us to get these photos and put us in position safely and in a really comfortable way to get those shots. They're dying. I mean, they're out of work, and some of them haven't worked for 14, 15 months now. So we're trying to take money that we would have given for tip money anyway and send that to the guides that are around the world and keep them going and keep them employed as guides so they're not off driving a truck and don't guide anymore.
True. Todd, now that the third book is done, you are certainly not finalizing your project. So what's next for you? What are you going to do getting off your butt? Now the pandemic is still continuing.
It is going to take a jump to get started because I'm kind of basking in the glow of being done with this one and having it run. But speaking with my representatives at it's Connecticut Public Television, that's my host channel, and they are just marvelous. It's the same kind of feel of family that we have with Holbrook. They're supportive and they have great suggestions. We've been talking about what the concepts are for the next documentary, which is now 5 documentaries that are to be made. It depends on how the travel schedules go. If things open up the way we need them to, the first one will be migrations. And we're doing everything from the great migration of wildebeest and zebras and gazelles in East Africa to the caribou migration in Canada and across Alaska, which is, I hope in September we'll be up in the Eskimo lands and do that kind of filming. Another one that we still need to film is the butterfly migration of the monarchs. We have the whole hatching cycle, and we have where they come up through Missouri and they go up to Canada on this super migration back to Mexico. It takes 5 generations to get to Canada and 1 super generation to return to Mexico. We need to film in Mexico. So that trip, and anyone who wants to join us is absolutely welcome. That's going to be late February, early March next year.
Yes, we are looking forward to that.
Yeah, describe the habitat a little bit, Pinlin.
Oh, it's I mean, magical. I love everything wildlife related, but I had never just like expected to fall in love with butterflies like I had on that trip. The surrounding is magical with the trees, with the people around, but the butterflies are early in the morning, just like all cluttered around the pine trees, the fir trees, and as the sun warms them up, all of a sudden there is this burst of color and burst of this energy. And from these just like really small butterflies, you just don't expect to hear that sound of the wings flapping. And I mean, millions of butterfly cover the sky, and all you are seeing this orange and black wings just like flapping. It was magical. You certainly understand why they are just like called the daughters of sun. I mean, you can hear, it was a lot of people when I was over there at El Rosario, and you can certainly feel the gasp in the air. It was total silence from this many people, and you heard the gasping of breath of people just seeing this. It is, I'm looking forward to that, doing that with you.
Can I go? Yeah. So in February, I'll be in Tanzania finishing up the birthing cycle. Then from there to the Maldives, the islands in the Indian Ocean, there are 129 atolls. And each of them support the myriad of life that we're going to photograph and film underwater, and then we come back and we'll do the butterfly migration. Yes. But another migration that we already have covered is there's sulfur butterflies that migrate from the Amazon down to the Pantanal. And they fly at incredible heights and then come and land, and they drink from the salt licks along the mineral licks along the rivers there. Some of the other migrations would be sea turtles and whales and those kind of things. After that will be life cycles of the different animals that we see across the planet. That'll be number 2. And then a third one will be maybe my favorite concept, and it's going to be really powerful. It's going to be where water and land meet. And think of that. If you're in the driest of deserts without support, you're going to die. If you're in the middle of the ocean without support, you're going to die. And you have both of these major cycles. We survive where they meet, where we have enough water and enough dryness to be who and what we are as different species across the planet. So we'll look at the different challenges of the world in that area. Then there'll be the last one, maybe tales from the wild, tales from the ends of the earth. That could be it. So it's going to be a busy next 5 to 10 years.
That's great. That's great. Inspiring Minds wants to know, where do you get all of these ideas? Does it just come to you while you are photographing, while you are traveling, while you are chatting?
It can be just when you're talking, something can trigger an idea, and then that idea expands and maybe morphs into a different idea. But what it really comes down to, and I think that there are people out here that a lot of people who are interested in photography and travel, and why do you take a picture? Think about it. Why do you travel? think back to the Elizabethan era, the Victorian era in England, when the English Empire was around the world, and they would bring things back from their travels to show people. You're bringing pictures back to show people. You're showing them what you saw, and you're trying to tell the story of what's out there. And so really it's all about storytelling. And when you can take a single picture that tells a story and then have supporting pictures around it to tell a bigger story, you have maybe a paragraph that expands to a chapter, and you add those chapters together and you have a book or a scene, a section of a movie, and then the whole movie.
That's amazing. I think we are just like certainly ready for question and answers. I'm gonna just like kind of go through some of these, and please keep them coming. I actually have a comment here from Steve Kent mentioning that, Todd, is the background picture that you have is from Lake Nakuru?
No, but Steve,
I think there's a story there.
But Steve, I remember being at Lake Nakuru with you. No, and I also remember being at Lake Naivasha with you, and you having a absolutely lovely picture of some wildebeest that were, no, they were waterbuck. I think they were waterbuck, and they were coming out of a marsh in a group, and it's just a marvelous picture that you have of many. This picture is actually, my wife took this picture in Serengeti. So that's one of those marvelous trees of the central Serengeti.
Got you. One of the questions that actually has come in is, we have seen you with a lot of equipment during the video that you were showing. I certainly had the pleasure of seeing you carrying some of those. Do you ever take pictures with your cell phone? Do you have any tips for our listeners?
I do. And I have an example or two for you. And I'm going to start with, this is my wife's cell phone. Here, I'll hold it in front of me like this. This cell phone is actually in the the Historical Society in Chicago. It's the original Motorola flip phone. I've upgraded, and now I'm using, I don't know, what have I got here? It's a
Can you play Candy Crush on that?
No. This is it's a Samsung 9, whatever that is. But I'm going to do a screen share. And these are pictures from the last week or so. We did an excursion for underwater filming in the Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean. And let's see, where the heck would that be? Dun, dun, dun. Cell phone pictures. You know, I'm so happy that I'm organized, aren't you? Here we go. I'm changing screens here to a different part of the world. And I'm going to say these are all cell phone pictures from 2 weeks ago. So this will be used in the documentary. I think it's a spectacular shot with a cell phone out of the plane window. This is one of the many barrier reef areas of the Turks and Caicos. They have, I think, the third longest fringe reef in the world. First being East Africa, second being somewhere else, and third being this. But that's a great shot for a cell phone. This is a cell phone coming into land over Chalk Sound. The color of the water, the angles of the islands. I think it's just spectacular.
I think this was the ongoing joke during our Madagascar trip. Todd, you must have a very good cell phone.
That was funny. Oh, and there are so many conch shells in the Caribbean. This is just one with a beautiful lagoon behind it. There are some caves in the Turks and Caicos that will knock you out. This is called Indian Cave. And there is no camera that I can afford that could take these pictures. There's just no way. I set the camera to panoramic, and these are right out of the phone. I suppose if I played with them, the color would be different and a little more texture, but sit next to an ocean, this probably will go into, there's video from the phone too of this with the waves coming in so softly against this beach. These will be in the when land and water meet. They're They're that kind. Yeah, Julie took this one on her cell phone. I think this is the best of the bunch.
Todd, did you actually ever take any photography classes, or did you study it formally? Did you teach yourself? How did this all start?
My dad was a photographer and a biology zoologist, as I said. But when he was in Tanzania, he was taking pictures. And when we came back home, I think he was a big Leica guy and a Nikon shooter. And when we came back home, they did, mom and dad, presentations at the library or a local church. And so when I was growing up, they had the, you hear the sound of those fans and you hear the click of the slideshow. And I knew what you had to do to take a good picture. That wasn't the issue. When we decided we were going on safari, I didn't know what an f-stop was. I mean, I had no idea what ISO was or whatever. I knew what 110 film was. But my mother-in-law actually got me a Nikon N2000, and it shot 3 frames per second. No autofocus, but that was it, man. I could go take pictures. And then the second time we went, I think I had an F5, a Nikon F5, which was a really good camera, and a Zoomy 150 to 500 Sigma, which any of you who know this lens will recognize this sound. As it tried to focus. I did get some good pictures on that, but they were all lost in the mail. When they were coming back from the lab, all those shots were gone. And so I'm crying, and Julie says, well, you should go back and just make better pictures. I said, I'll never make pictures again. I'm going to stop. So then anyway, I had some pictures from Florida with that same setup, and a guy from Sigma who was at Calumet Photo doing a Clean Your Camera days saw those pictures and said, well, what do you like to shoot? And I said, I've got a bunch of Sigma lenses. And he signed me up, and he had me shoot for Sigma. And so they wanted shots of Florida, Blackwater swamps, alligators, herons for their website in Japan. And I said, I know Florida, I can do that for you. And I had never been to Florida in my life. And I had a friend who said, if you call this guy named Arthur Morris, he'll tell you what to shoot and where to go. And so I don't know this guy from anybody. He doesn't know me. And I call him up. He says, oh, go to Ding Darling, you'll be fine. And he told me later, he had the phone ready to hang up. And he thought, I'll have mercy. And he says, what do you like to photograph? I said, I like photographing on safari. And he says, safari, I'm going on safari to Tanzania or to Kenya. I'm going on safari to Kenya. And I said, well, when are you going? He says, October. And I said, remembering that Julie said I should go make better pictures again, I said, well, I'm going in October. So he said, why don't you come show me where the best spots are, and I'll teach you everything I know about big lens photography. And so we ran around for about a month, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff and took a whole bunch of pictures like I'd never taken before. And when I had, again, here's Julie, my lovely wife. She said, you're going to need a bigger lens because those big boy lenses, you won't be happy if you don't have one. So at that point, the dollar and the yen were kind of in a good position for purchasing Nikon products. So I think for $6,500, I bought a 600 f4 lens. And that was the start of it all.
Wow. Wow. With all of the...
And now I'm shooting cell phone pictures.
Well, they come a long way. How do you travel with camera equipments? Like, this is, I guess, a nightmare or a challenge for a lot of people. Any tips with working with airlines?
Yeah, it's really pretty simple. Actually, it's not, because you can't get the bag anymore. But I designed this Pelican bag to hold everything that I need. Absolutely everything. I had a zip-on computer bag. Inside of it, there were no dividers and literally no padding. So you could fit your long lens, a secondary telephoto, all the wide stuff, 2 camera bodies, battery chargers, everything you needed would go in this one camera bag. And it looked super light because it didn't have padding or webbing or strapping. And I just rolled it on the plane, and I have never, ever, ever been stopped by a major carrier. Some of the little planes, doesn't matter what you have, it's going to go underneath the plane. And that's fine, because it's a little hopper plane. There's not much luggage. So I've never really had a problem with bringing camera gear.
We are going to add that to your accomplishments, being a good actor. I think one of the tricks with the airlines is act like that bag is very light and you're handling it
And
very
small.
nicely. Yeah.
Don't look
don't
put
let them
upon.
know it's like 70 pounds.
Right. And don't look put upon and this is really, really heavy. So that's a good way to do it.
True. So on the shoot that on the pictures that you were showcasing, you had that one picture of the lemur sitting on your shoulder. How did you actually get that shot?
Well, I didn't. And I should actually say that Ryan Bennett is a friend of mine who was on that. And he said, whoa, click. And that was it. You don't know when it's going to happen because lemurs are so absolutely awesome. The one where I'm surrounded by lemurs. I was photographing a different lemur. I didn't even know they were there. So it happens.
Yeah, and for that shot, it was actually one of life's amazing points that I was on that trip together with all of you as well. And that's actually a small island for rehabilitated lemurs. So they are actually doing some rescue work, and the ones that they cannot release back to wild is actually at that island. So we were also visiting that. So that one particular shot when the lemur is, I think, on your shoulder, we were at that location.
Well, one of the cool things about that island is you can take pictures of lemurs before you go out into the wild, and you can get an idea of where they are, what their size is, what their movements are like, and what your lens choices might be later in the trip. So that's cool.
Yeah. Todd, we have talked a lot about possible future works, and you have also been talking about how PBS is showcasing a lot of these, and they are actually ramping up as well. Are these projects viewable on other platforms?
Well, some people, I never know when or where it's going to show. What they send me is called a carriage report, and it tells me where they have shown. That doesn't help me tell people to, hey, look, here's the show for you tonight. So some people miss it. But if you go to the website, To the Ends of the Earth, LLC.org. So it's simply To the Ends of the Earth, LLC.org, one word. There are DVDs, there are Blu-rays, the soundtrack is there, books, there's caps and t-shirts and coffee mugs. There's a bunch of cool stuff that you can use your dollars to support the habitats of all these animals that we're seeing on these slides.
Okay. Todd, I know that one of the things that makes your photography and image amazing is your knowledge of the animal's behavior. For everything that you have done, do you have a favorite animal?
Right now, my favorite animal is white pelicans, because I tell you what, I've seen them in Florida. I've seen them in Horicon Marsh north of Milwaukee, and from a million miles away, oh, look, they landed 5 lakes in or whatever. So I've seen white pelicans. But I have a friend on Facebook who posted a cell phone shot from her backyard. I said, those are white pelicans. And so she invited me down, and for this entire last week, I've been photographing white pelicans. And I'm going to show you a couple pictures right now that are, to me,
please.
Where, I mean, you could say anywhere in the world, this is as good as anything you'll see. So I start with what we have is a pile of feathers. On this first day, there were maybe 20 pelicans on this fallen log and sort of a little bit of a sandbar. And they're interested in being on that to rest. So that's why they're on this particular lake. And I had never, ever, first of all, had white pelicans that close. And you can see all the reeds around it. There's a break in the reeds where there's a little boat sitting there, and they take off from there for fishing. No reeds, right on the sunlight angle. And I could lay down and photograph them from water level. So doing that.
Are you sharing your screen?
I just really, did I
I'm
not?
just like, you're saying all of that. I don't see pelicans. I only see
well,
you.
I clicked it and I didn't say share. What? So anyway, now we're at it. Here we go. Here's the pile of feathers. Thanks, Pillin. And these kind of shots with a 2x on my 600 millimeter. This is the 600 millimeter by itself. And I'm really looking at, instead of a pile of feathers, some organized angles of the beaks. And I love their hair. It's just so cool. Here they are all asleep. It's beautiful, just simply beautiful. And they look like they're wearing bibs at this angle. Here's a thing that they do. They I don't know if it's simply part of their grooming ritual or if it's interspecies communication, but they raise their head up and then they flop their beak around. It's so cool. And this just the mating bumps on their bills. That's just starting now. There's that again. And again, I'm trying to make some sort of a relationship between two birds instead of just a single bird. There's a single, but I like that a little better. So what are you looking for in your photography? This is the action that I love. They want to be on that sandbar. And those that aren't come swimming by and they give it their best shot, whether it's going to be pushing them off or this guy's jousting him by putting his beak down the other one's throat. And off with his head. Look at this. They're fighting for that one spot. And then this is a dream shot. This is actually my big brother's shot. He was with me yesterday. So this is yesterday morning. What do you suppose, anybody out there, would cause this? Would it be a raptor coming down? Would it be any number of things that I would think would make it happen? Well, we're sitting there and Brian and I are just taking a break and we're having a little sip of tea and we've got a little cinnamon bread and whatever. And then it's Tuesday at 10 o'clock in Illinois. You get the emergency siren and it just started. And they put their heads up and they didn't know what was going on. And I said, Brian, shoot. And I just grabbed my camera and I was doing filming. So that is one version of it. And this is going to be in the migrations special. This is raw footage, no sound, but this is what it was like. I've never seen it. Ever.
I'm dying to see the music that you're gonna come up with. When you look at these, how do you tie the emotions of what you are seeing with the music? How does that process go for you?
It sort of develops over time. In East Africa, I do a whole bunch of shooting, over the course of 2 weeks, and sometimes different themes will start developing by the style of shooting we're doing, like we're doing the migration or we're doing birds. So different themes coalesce during that period. Then I'll write them down and see if they come to anything. That one's going to be wild. I think I might use this as the theme. That was heart-stopping. And when you say your favorite thing right now, that's as good as anything. So I'll tell you another story, as good as it gets. This is 2 weeks ago. We were in the Turks and Caicos and we're doing underwater. I haven't done underwater stuff for 20 years. And so it was a relearning process and it was fun. And so we're looking to go out and we're going to snorkel and the tide's not right and the wind's not right. So we go and sit down, we go back out an hour later and we go out and there's 30 feet of water to the bottom. I know I can't go down 30 feet. That's a lot of way to go down snorkeling. And so I look down and there's a turtle. I go, that's a turtle. I bet he's got to breathe. So he's going to have to come up. So I'm there for maybe a minute and he's on the bottom and he looks up and he goes, and he comes like right at me and then goes under like between my legs. And I'm filming this whole thing. And then my flipper got in the way and killed the shot. But it was unbelievable. And he came up and here's the water. He expelled all the air in 1 second and went, and then got a new breath. And I'd never seen anything like it. He did it 5 or 6 times. And then he led me across the reef and then off into the distance. And I thought, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. That is by far the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then 2 days later, on the Turks and Caicos, there are supposed to be flamingos. And they're not greater flamingos. They're not lesser flamingos. They're not Andean flamingos. They're Caribbean flamingos. And I had never photographed Caribbean flamingos. So we're going across the channel. We're on a ferry boat. We're going to go find flamingos. And so we're going to go to Flamingo Pond. No flamingos. We're going to go to Flamingo Acres. Here's Flamingo Meadows. Here's Flamingo Creek. There's not a single flamingo in the Turks and Caicos. So Julie says, let's just go to the beach. This one's supposed to be pretty. And we go up this road that just narrows down to gravel, and there's nothing, and there's a break in the trees, and you can see the ocean. As we pull up, it starts raining flamingos into the ocean. I'm like, I can't get my seatbelt off. Where's my camera? I can't get, and it was a panic. It was an absolute panic. I was like, I was a child with a camera. I didn't know what I was doing. And I got out and went down. We ran down to the beach. I'll screen share. I have no idea how this happened, but it did. There was a guy, here we go. There was an older island guy there named Lawrence. And he's sitting on a picnic table screaming for us to get over here, get over here. He said, I've been here to this beach for the last 65 years of my life. Every day I come to this beach and I've never seen this. So here is my first shot, the pile of feathers. I got it. Look at all these flamingos. And I thought, okay, let's see what we really want to do. I'm going to go down, I'm going to get down lower, and I'm going to put the 2X on so I get that. It's really sharp on the main subject, really soft in the background and the foreground. And I have never seen anything like some of these pictures. They were on this sandbar. There were about 30 of them, and they were teaching the young ones to fly. So they would take off into the wind and they would circle around this little island, and then they would come back down, they'd land, and the little ones would flap their wings and get stronger every time. So here's a male and female doing the flight circle. And here's one of the young ones right in the middle. He's so beautiful. And
Those
then
are amazing.
I was dying. And then what's your ultimate want to be? I want something that's so simple and tells a single story. I like those. And here's some, beautiful confrontation stuff. And then here you go. It's just so simple. There's a little bit of a wave in the front, the young one there. And then here's Julie taking a picture of me on the sand, shooting straight out.
And I think
go ahead.
Something that you said really resonates with a lot of us, right? You were just like talking about the older gentleman on the beach, talking about how in the last 65 years, he has never seen anything like that. Every day on the travels that we do in our own backyards, we are seeing some of the changes that we are all going through. Some of it is just habitat change. Some of it is related to climate change. I know that a lot of the work that you do really ties in with conservation. In the first webinar, we were talking about you have a mission that saving the world and the natural beauties for the next generations, for your granddaughter and the other ones to come. So a lot of the work that you had done really supports conservation. Can you give an update on the Jane Goodall Fund that you are supporting? Do you get regular updates? How are the funds being used? What does this mean?
All I do is I call her and we just chat. So I don't have any, there's no electronic stuff because she has no time. The woman is on the road 320 days a year. So I'll call her and she's driving down, somebody's driving her down the street of New York, or she's in the airport waiting to fly to Seattle, or any number of things. But here's the thing. There's a new documentary. This will answer all of your questions. And people have discussed Jane Goodall and this and that, and she does this, and this is great. This is the stuff from the 60s. They did the stuff with the Hugo on Leiwick's, the film that they just found, hundreds of hours of it 2 years ago. And this newest one will knock you out. It's called Jane, the Hope. And I'm telling you, when you watch this film, all of your questions will be answered. It is just the best thing you will ever see all year. Jane, the hope.
The hope. And we all need that quite a lot at the certain moment. I know Uganda is one of your favorites, internal joke here, and I know the work that Jane does with chimpanzees, but I want to just like jump to a close relative of that. I know we have done quite a lot of trips to Rwanda to see the silverback gorillas. One of our participants would like to know, photographing silverbacks in the wild, what did it feel like? What type of emotions that you had to go through in your mind? What type of a moment that was? And I know you had done that at least 8 or 10 times, if not more. Was it all the same, or
35 treks, Palin? There are so many stories. I don't know from which to choose. I will maybe start with one that it's a challenge to do. And if you watch, I believe it is The Natural World, you can find, there's a section about photographing gorillas and the technical aspects of their black fur, sunlight. Is it shade? Is it mixed light? Is it in open green? Is it in bamboo? They all have challenges, and some are way better than others. But that can become frustrating too if you're looking for the photograph and not simply, oh, they're so cute, they're so powerful, they're, whatever. I got to get past that because I really am interested in sharing dramatic pictures with people to engage them. I don't want just a snapshot to say, here's a gorilla and nobody cares. So as I'm doing that, I'm in bamboo, and bamboo is the worst. It's the worst. And this particular Akashi family, they have one guy that's called Big Ben. And Big Ben is the only bald gorilla in the world. He's bald, and he's got a little Friar Tuck kind of fringe. And so I'm looking at him, I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. And I know him from years past. It's like, okay, I have a picture of him. I'm not gonna do this again. And we're sitting in bamboo, and I'm sitting on a hillside. And it's a horrible situation. I have a new guide, and he doesn't know anything about the photography that I'm hoping for. But he says, look, isn't it great? The gorillas are right there. I said, no, it's not great, because the sun is behind. It's glancing off of the bamboo leaves, and there's hot yellow spots all over, and then there's a black blob that's a gorilla. And I feel this on my shoulder. And I turn, and Big Ben is sitting right next to me. He's like, I feel your pain. I know what you're talking about. And this gorilla was interacting. I don't know if he felt my emotions or what that was, but it was a moment for me. I really liked that.
That's amazing. I think we are getting ready to wrap up. Unfortunately, it's already 5 p.m.
2 more questions, and I'll do it real quick.
Lindsay, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap up there. But thank you so much.
Send me the questions, and then I can respond to people that gave the questions.
Okay.
Okay.
We will do that. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, so we are at 5 o'clock. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Before we wrap up, I'll just mention our next webinar is scheduled for May 5th. We'll be talking about monarch butterfly conservation and science with Dr. Jarrett Daniels and Kristen Grace from the Florida Museum of Natural History. So look out for the invitation for that. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Today's presentation has been recorded, and we'll be sending out the link in the next few days. The recording will also be available on our YouTube channel and on our website, holbrooktravel.com/webinars. You can find all our past webinars there. Thank you so much to Todd for sharing your stories and your amazing photography. It was a lot of fun. Just loved seeing everything. Thank you to Pauline. Enjoyed just hearing you guys talk. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us this afternoon. We hope you have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.